Claudia. I'll go ahead and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance tonight. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I think everyone received notice on the council that we have not opened up Civic Hall this evening due to the outbreak of COVID that happened at our last public meeting. And so we have put on the website and gotten information out, hopefully for those that—
At the fire department.
Maybe for those that would like to speak to the council this evening. So this is the time to receive comments from our citizens, and anyone may speak on a topic other than matter that's in litigation, a quasi-judicial land use matter, or a matter scheduled for public hearing at some future date. We limit comments to 3 minutes, and I'll time those and give you a 5-second warning on that. This evening, again, the only way to be able to do that is through our Zoom function or by telephone. And so I'll turn it over to Claudia to see if she's received any indication from anyone that would like to make public comment tonight. Claudia?
Yes, we'll start with Mark Davis, who's on Zoom.
Welcome, Mark.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to talk, I suppose I need to give my address and all that. Mark Davis, 652 Southeast Washington Street here in McMinnville. I'd like to talk about the American Rescue Plan money. I've been following your work sessions on that, and I'm generally pleased with the direction. It appears that the council and the budget committee are recommending that we move. I think the parks plan is really important. Was glad to hear you talking about that. One concern I have that I'd like to raise with you this evening is the fact that while a budget was approved last year for the full $7 million, there wasn't really any detail given to the public. And I think that, I know tonight we're having another group come, and Mr. Hageberg spoke at a previous meeting asking for money. I mean, I think if we're going to start, doling money out to groups or people that are suggesting ways the city can use the money, that we ought to have some sort of hearing and invite the citizens to give their opinions on where the money might go. I just really think that's an important thing, and hope that you would consider that. And I want to be clear, I'm not trying to criticize these groups that are coming and talking, because in fact, I went to the Affordable Housing Committee and said, you know what? I was listening to the city council meeting, and they've got some money from the American Rescue Plan, and the Affordable Housing Committee ought to, be asking for some of this money too. So I'm, maybe a little bit of a hypocrite there, but I still think that, we need to hear from the citizens in general. One final comment. I heard several people mention broadband access, and I'm totally into that. In fact, the fact that tonight the only way we can address you is via broadband, suggests that it's getting pretty important in, civic life, education, all sorts of things. I want to remind everybody that the city owns a broadband backbone that runs around the city. The city itself, Water and Light, and the school district all use that broadband. The public generally doesn't have access to it. I'm not suggesting that that's, should be further developed, but I think as you're talking about how to move forward with this, that having the, that broadband backbone is a real asset to the community, and it should be considered how, we possibly might use it in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. And I'll just have staff under Jeff's direction to reach out to Mark on answering our approach that we're going to make for public hearings on those monies. Claudia, next.
Mayor, that's all who we have for public speaking.
Thank you, Claudia. That takes us to presentations this evening, and we have a presentation from the McMinnville Economic Vitality Leadership Council, and they're going to give us an update on meetings they've been holding as a committee, as an executive committee, and as a committee. And so I'll turn it over to Planning Director Heather Richards and the chair of the Economic Vitality Committee, Carson Benter, to present. Welcome, you two.
Mayor, just for the record, Planning Director Richards is not here tonight. I think Chair Benner is probably able to make the presentation without staff assistance, but if Carson, you need any help, just let us know and we'll do what we can on our end. And I'll introduce to you someone who you already know in a variety of ways, Carson Benner, the chair of the EVLC.
Thank you, Carson. And again, it's good to have you in front. I know you've got a few individuals on your committee that are with us today, and if you need to have them address and be a part of it, we welcome their participation also.
Thank you, Mayor Hill and members of the McMinnville City Council. I think we are waiting for, has Robert been activated?
I am here, and I can start my video.
There we go. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'll do self-introductions and then jump quickly into the presentation. I was appointed to the what I refer to as the Alphabet Club, McMinnville Economic Leadership Vitality Council. I have to look at it every time. As a member of the school board, but I also am a owner of a small construction company here in McMinnville. And then Dave, Devin, and Robert, if you do self-introductions, that'd be great.
Sure, it's Dave Ruckles, Director of the McMinnville Downtown Association.
I'm Robert Banigay. I'm a member of the commission, been on the commission for about a year now. I'm actually a principal, and I guess now that we've been acquired by Avalara, my title is technically a vice president. I run the consulting practice for Avalara.
And Devin Paolo, I'm representing MEDP and MIP on the committee, and I'm also a business owner here in town of a company called Solid Form.
And then
Fantastic.
I'll just and Carson, I'll recognize Councilor Chris Chenoweth, who is the council representative and liaison on your committee also.
Thank you. Mayor Hill and City Council members, I just want to do a quick history lesson. All of you are familiar with this, but if I could share my screen, I've got a fancy PowerPoint that I can share with you. Can everybody see that?
Yeah.
Fantastic. So really quickly, a short history lesson on how we ended up here. In 2019, the city of McMinnville voted to adopt the MacTown 2032 Economic Development Strategic Plan. And shortly after that, the City Council created the McMinnville Economic Vitality Leadership Committee. The MEVLC is the city's committee composed of leaders of MEDP, McMinnville, Visit McMinnville, McMinnville Chamber of Commerce, the City of McMinnville, McMinnville Downtown Association, local businesses, and the school district. This charge is to help lead our community forward with economic development strategies and initiatives through implementation of the MacTown 2032 Economic Development Strategic Plan with the following goals. And you guys know these, but I think it's important to kind of run through them in preparation for our ask. The first one is increase living wage, and that sort of drives everything we're doing in our focus. Create systems for economic mobility and inclusion, maintain and enhance our high quality of life, sustain and innovate within traditional industries and advanced manufacturing, foster opportunities in technology and entrepreneurship, be a leader in hospitality and place-based tourism, align and cultivate opportunities in craft, beverage, and food systems, and proactively assist growth in education, medicine, and other sciences. We spent the first 2 years of our existence, or year and a half of our existence, sort of understanding the broader goals and then trying to get our head around it. And we feel like we've kind of all converged at this perfect opportunity where we've got this committee that's voted that we've got 2 priorities. At the same time, this funding has become available. And we are super excited about being able to leverage these funds to help our 2 priorities, which are 3rd Street Improvement Project and McMinnville Innovation Center. And we think that the work we've done up until this point, it helps us really set the stage. And anybody that's lived in McMinnville knows that we've been working on a plan to improve 3rd Street for 30 years. And we're really starting to run out of time. So there's a sense of urgency, both on what's happening on 3rd Street, but also what's happening with these funds and availability. I'm gonna turn it over to Dave, and he's going to talk specifically about the 3rd Street improvements.
Thank you. I'll start with going back to, and Carson, just leave it right where it's at, you're fine. The adopted city economic development goals. I went through them today and I was like, okay, where does the 3rd Street Improvement Project touch on those goals? And half of those goals that are listed certainly have a lot in common with what our objectives are. Number 1, maintain and enhance our high quality of life. 3rd Street is the living room of McMinnville. And it is important that it feel like a living room. And I think that as far as high quality of life goes, that's the foundation of what that is here in the city. Does it foster opportunity in technology and entrepreneurship? Every single person down there. We are a 100% completely independent downtown business community. There is no chains in our downtown. We are made up of entrepreneurs, and we certainly can embrace technology and need to embrace technology through even what Mark said in terms of broadband service and so forth. And our project may lead us to that. Be a leader in hospitality and place-based tourism. I don't think there's any way you could argue that that is not one of the most important elements of that particular goal. And then align and cultivate opportunities in craft, beverage, and food systems. We now have over 9 tasting rooms on 3rd Street, and I predict there'll be even more. So it's an important part of the mix as to where we're going forward. Carson, go ahead and move to the next slide. So this just gives you an idea of the improvement district, which stretches all the way from Adams all the way up to Johnson. It's obviously 9+ blocks of infrastructure that really has come into a dire need of improvement. This city has been talking about this for decades, and we have made absolutely very little progress in trying to address the issues that we face. And as we go through this slide presentation, you'll see what those obstacles are. Next, Carson. So you can see right here, I know most of you go downtown, I hope you do. This is just a block, but every block has this. And this is a liability for the city as well as the property owners. And it's continuous all the way through. And it's getting worse and worse. Next. Our tree wells. We love our trees, but our trees now have outgrown their space. They're becoming larger, they're uprooting. There's a lot of issues that we're faced with right now. It's what leads back to the last slide. And so as you see that one cut down tree before that, you can kind of see that we're losing trees in part because we don't have the right density and so forth to be able to support their growth. Next. This is the one thing I see in the winter. We spend a lot of time here with the Downtown Association and with the people that work with us, sweeping off sidewalks to get the water off the sidewalks and in the street. Here's the problem. It doesn't go anywhere. So it's becoming a bigger and bigger issue as we don't have the infrastructure underground to be able to accommodate what is a growing problem in terms of our ability to catch and release rainfall. Next. And then you can see 3rd Street as it is. It's been a patch and repair for a long time, and it continues to be such. And it's a time when, if this is the crown jewel, this is the living room, this is the place of show for our community, it's time that we take advantage of trying to address it. Next. So this is the financial end of it. But before I get to that, there was one element that we may have skipped, and that was the reason for our request. So this is the development of a schematic design and 30% construction documents that we're asking for funding support so that we could get the 3rd Street project to a point where it could be considered for infrastructure funds that, and more likely, it'll be coming from the federal government. For 20 years or more, we haven't had that opportunity. We've talked about this project, but we haven't been able to act on it. And when you're talking about business resiliency and recovery and so forth from the ARPA funds, our businesses have given everything they have to stay in the game. And they have succeeded for the most part. And it is a tribute to their entrepreneurship, their planning, their ability to weather the storms. But now it's time to kind of return that favor, I think. It's time for us to look to do what we can do to make it a more livable, and to meet up to the expectations of our residents, as well as those that are visiting us. It can't be an eyesore. Therefore, we're coming to you today to ask you to pledge money. Our urban renewal funds total $200,000. Those are already allocated toward this project. If we could up that ante some and get it to a level that allows us to get the engineering and design study done, then we will be in a position to be able to ask for infrastructure funds as shovel ready. And that's so important because when those monies are available, they're not going to be looking for projects that are thought about or in their infancy. They're going to be looking for people who are ready to act. And that's what we need from you. We need you to help us get to that point. And I ask that you consider this as part of the ARPA funds that you're receiving. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. And then Devin, do you want to give us a brief on the Innovation Center?
Will do. So our second priority from our committee is the McMinnville Innovation Center. And for those of you who aren't familiar, this portion of it is the development of an infrastructure plan to serve McMinnville's new Innovation Center. It's a 140-acre master planned industrial business incubator. So it's designed to bring industry and business together along with education. And it's adjacent to the airport on Highway 18. So the project is a hallmark of the recently completed 3-mile lane area plan and a foundation of McMinnville's recently adopted MacTown 2032 Economic Development Strategic Plan, a plan aimed at supporting living wage jobs in McMinnville. This project was recently identified as a priority project by the McMinnville City Council and the McMinnville Economic Vitality Leadership Council. Next slide. So here's a map showing where it's located, kind of in between Evergreen and the airport there. And again, the idea is to leverage the airport and the other businesses in the area. The idea would be that we'd have a few businesses relocate to this area to kick it off. But again, it's a partnership between business and education. The funding is for the development of the infrastructure plan, which serves the site with adequate water, wastewater, and broadband infrastructure necessary to support the high-density 21st century jobs. Total cost is about $250,000, and that's our request. The city is also scheduled to start updating its transportation, water, and wastewater master plans in 2021, 22, and 23. So this project would be a subset of that effort focused on this targeted area. As far as alignment with the investment criteria, obviously making McMinnville more resilient comes down to living wage jobs. And that's the sole purpose of this, is a catalyst for innovation and living wage jobs. And the idea that it's also working with local partners by bringing business and education together, and its alignment with MacTown's 2032 strategic priorities.
Thank you, Devin. And then Robert, would you close us out?
Sure. So before I kind of close our presentation, I wanted to kind of make this a bit personal, and personal on two fronts. As some of you know who I've met over the years in my time here, I'm not a McMinnville native. I've been in McMinnville almost 9 years, originally from Albuquerque. I grew up in a small town, Clovis, New Mexico, very similar to McMinnville, with one notable exception. McMinnville is like, for lack of a better word, the fancy version of a small town, where you've got the warmth and the character and all the things a small town offers. But you've also got, 3rd Street, and you've got leadership that is thinking beyond just being a small town. It's being a small town with more. And I think the projects that we're recommending here are very much in line with what drew me here in the first place. I work for a company that is of the type that cities like to attract. We're an emerging company, a brand new company. Innovators came in and disrupted a market. And we did that here. And from the city of McMinnville, I have the opportunity of servicing the largest companies in the country. My entire book of business is Fortune 500 companies. And I get to do that from this charming town. I remember the day I came to meet the owners almost 9 years ago. And where did they take me? They took me to 3rd Street. They drove me around to the Saturday market. They took me to various restaurants, and, I wasn't familiar with Oregon wine. And it really, it really was overwhelming, in the course of that weekend, to just see everything that this small town had to offer. And when I was able to break away from the business and kind of just drive around and notice little pockets of manufacturers and contractors, and it really was a small town, but like I said, something extra. And once my wife got to going into the shops and all that, it wasn't even I didn't even have a choice anymore. We were coming to McMinnville. So when I think of, how can we not invest in 3rd Street? These dollars that have been made available, one of their express purposes is to foster the recovery from this pandemic that obviously isn't over. So I suspect, our businesses are really going to need us to be there for them. And this concept of being shovel ready, as I've been engaged in more city activities, I'm understanding the importance of this, that we've got to be ready day one to compete for the dollars that, are never going to meet every priority that we'd like to pursue. And in regards to the Innovation Center, this is another, to me, just a no-brainer. The city's already had the vision of wanting to move forward with this. Well, now it's time to actually start the real planning. And this feasibility study will allow us to do that. So you're going to get a lot of requests over the coming months until these dollars actually start to hit the street. I think these two items are in keeping with the plans that the council has already adopted. And I think these are very, very wise investments for the city's future. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Mr. Mayor, I think that's the end of we have more slides that Robert just blew right past, but we've got, I think that's the end. If you don't have any questions, then I think we're done.
Well, let's do this. First, I'd like to thank those who represented the Economic Vitality Group and made the presentations today. Thank you for your preparedness, the way that you communicated, and the passion that you bring. I'd also, Carson, ask you to take back to the committee. I know this has been a big lift with many members of that committee, and having had the opportunity to be a part of at least your committee meetings, I know the good discussions that you've had, and you're exactly the kind of thing that the council wants committees to be doing, is to take the expertises you have and come up with an ask. So thank you from that perspective. We're going to open it up to questions that the council may have. And so Council President Drapp, can I see your hand is raised?
It is, and I'm sorry, I have a slightly unstable connection tonight, so I'm sorry if I time out or whatnot. And I do want to make sure I have a clarifying question before my comments, which are in the 3rd Street Improvement Project. Are you suggesting replacing the downtown street trees? That's part of that suggestion? Just a nod from anybody, Carson, anybody would do, and make sure I understand that correctly.
Council Member Draken, I think it's part of the process, because the sidewalks have to be removed and the street has to be dug up, and the sewer and water lines need to be replaced, and broadband needs to be put in. And to do that is going to create challenges. Now, one of the things that we've been doing is discussing that element inside the MDA. And one of our thoughts is to grow our trees in advance with a local tree nursery, so that we could get our trees to a level that made them much larger than the minimum need that would be required to put in place of the existing trees. So we have some very creative ideas about that, so that should we replace them and need to replace them, and I think that's possibly going to need to be happening, we would come in with something that was more than just the minimum, that we would budget into this to do something that got us much further along in the process than just planting a 1-inch tree.
I see.
Okay, well, I think I'd like to make my, sorry, Mr. Mayor, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Go ahead.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I understood that correctly, because I've heard that previously. And I think this ties in with a number of things. And I do want to lead by saying that, yes, I'm generally supportive that this is an area where these are both areas we need to be invested. The philosophy behind this, I have some issue with, and I'm going to relate this back to what Mr. Banagay said, being new to McMinnville versus a longtime resident. And I don't think you have to have lived here for a long time to fall in love with McMinnville. But as a lifelong McMinnville resident, a person who is close with many of the downtown McMinnville business owners and those who frequent downtown, a loss of a mature tree system, I find, would be devastating. And I think it is worth exploring that we figure out a way to preserve those trees and rather replace the sidewalks, which would need replacing over time anyways. And the other part of that.
Remy's connectivity's been off and on tonight, so I'm sure she'll come back. She'll call back in. But I see.
I'm back.
Okay,
I'm back.
Go ahead, Remy.
I'll try. I'm sorry, it just drops. The other part of this is your presentation included stormwater drainage, and of course, mature trees are much better at helping with stormwater drainage. And so I'm not quite sure why we're not looking at creating new wells around these trees, making sure that there's plenty of room around the mature and existing trees. I'm sorry, I lost my place in my notes here.
Councilor Dratkin, I think
and also I think
what we would do is this funds would allow engineers that do this sort of thing come in and provide best solutions for us.
Yes.
Our committee is certainly not saying we want to cut all the trees down and pave over 3rd Street. We're saying we need to spend enough money to figure out the best way to revitalize 3rd Street. All the infrastructure needs to be replaced. How do we do that? And can we save some trees? Rock and roll, yeah. But I don't have, or our committee certainly doesn't have the expertise to do so. And I don't think anybody on the committee will want to cut any of them down unless that was the only way to get to where the end result is of a revitalized 3rd Street with infrastructure.
Well, I appreciate that, and I think that what I'm saying, and perhaps the unstable connection is making it hard to get my point across, but what I'm saying is that I would want some assurance that the philosophy is towards preservation and understanding, and that we're accepting that preservation can actually help with some of this other mitigation. And I think that's important, revitalizing our downtown with a potential loss of that type of atmosphere those trees create, and not to mention the shade that they provide to those buildings. The trees that have had to come down, I know that those buildings have been so much warmer this year, and in fact, they have contributed to some of our businesses having to close. I know specifically that businesses that lost trees in front of them in older buildings without adequate air conditioning over this heat have had to close because they can't manage their heat. So I just really would like us to take some of our council goals here, including planning for an environmentally wise future, and make sure that we're not just hiring. And Carson, I mean, you lead green building in our area, so I know that your eye is always turned to environmentalism. But hiring a firm to tell you how best to proceed can also produce any variety of results if you aren't giving specific direction to those firms. So what I'm saying is, if you are asking for a commitment of these dollars, I would like to understand how ingrained those dollars are going to be into some of these preservation aspects. Thanks so much for your time and all of your work. And I'm sorry about the unstable connection, and if it made any of my communication unclear or seem choppy or harsh, it's not meant in that way. I'm just aware that I've lost a connection about 15 times today, and I wanted to try to get my words out as fast as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Council President. Jeff, you have your hand up, and I think it was into response to some of that, and then it will be Zach.
Well, I don't know. I don't want to jump in front of Zach if he's got a comment, but I will say, for the benefit not just of Council President Drapkin, but everybody, it's important to remember this is a city project. The City Council is the ruling policy body here. There is no one that I have talked to, that city staff included, that does not believe that the canopy downtown is one of the unique and endearing factors that make our downtown great. And these trees are all 45 years old, and they have a particular lifespan. So part of the challenge of this 3rd Street improvement project is to save and renovate the urban forest, the canopy that we so treasure now, so that the generation after us is not faced with an entire canopy aging out in the same few-year window. So absolutely, we understand the importance of preservation, and we also understand that we need to periodically change trees out in a way that maintains the canopy in a better way than we're faced with right now, because we have a bunch of 45-year-old trees. So That said, we're not asking the committee to design this project. The committee's asking us to make design, partial design, a key project to be supported by ARPA. And everything that we've heard from council and the community thus far leads me to believe that folks really do want to see the sense of downtown preserved as best we can.
Thank you, Jeff. Let's now go to Zach, who is a member of the landscape committee that does talk about that. And then after Zach, we'll go to Sal.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll get my other thank yous out of the way first and then dive in. Chair Benner, great presentation. I think you got the good straw where you just had to introduce all the other charming, handsome people to do your work for you. So nicely done. Mr. Paolo, Banigay, Rucklos, it was a pleasure hearing from you. I will start by saying I am just absolutely boffo on this project. This, the downtown revitalization is just going to be a chance to leave a really cool legacy to a whole future generation of kids and adults to join there. I think a couple of questions, and maybe one of these questions is maybe helps answer some of Remy's questions and gets at a little bit of what Jeff was talking about. But much like we did for a lot of projects, the Highway 99 safety corridor, a lot of things, or your group itself, how will this project involve the public as we formulate things to make sure that we aren't making these decisions in a vacuum? And I know Jeff had just kind of alluded to the fact that the policymaking body is the one in charge ultimately, and all this will happen with the public's involvement. But are we going to make a 13-member committee or a group that's charged with 12 months of input and how that works, or will that be involved at this point or not? I don't know if we have the answers to that at this point, but
so we already have a committee created, and it's already met a number of times. It's been interrupted by COVID. So it hasn't met in some time, but I think, and Jeff, when I'm done here, you please chime in because you're more familiar with it than me, but yeah, there are every different walk of life from McMinnville involved in that decision-making process. So it's not a Lone Ranger kind of thing. It's something that involves everybody, including the community. So anyway, yeah, that's already in place. We just haven't had the chance to reconvene, and hopefully Heather will be able to do such in the coming months.
When was that group last active? Oh, sorry.
So actually, I would say if you've got questions, ask them tonight. Heather Richards is the lead staff person on this project. I don't have the benefit of all the details that she would have. She can answer these questions. I think we convened this committee almost 2 years ago, maybe longer than that. It met several times before the pandemic really shut things down. This project went dormant for a year plus. And so I think the questions that are being asked are great questions. I would just beg the council's permission to log them, acknowledge that we've gotten the questions, and give Heather the chance to give a more detailed and expert set of answers when she returns from her well-deserved time off.
Jeff, you might say that. I might say that it sounds like you guys agree that we should do these as priorities, and let's get going.
I like how the school board runs. Let's do it.
So let's go ahead and again, Zach, continue, Sal, and then Kelly.
And thank you. That was good news that it's already going. I'll see if I can get more information on that. If funded, in this round of funding this year, I don't really even know what our timeline or cliff is for getting and writing checks, but assume that the 3rd Street specifically project makes it. What's your guys' turnaround time and estimated lead time for having a completed? And I know we're only going to, I think, 30% or something like that, but what's the expected turnaround time to complete that portion for the 500,000?
I think Heather would have to answer unless Dave knows.
Yeah, I think Heather is the best person to answer that question, Zach. I think, okay. She knows to the T what type of timeline we'd be looking at and working with architectural and engineering firm.
Well, thanks for nothing. No, those are my two main questions. I think. Thanks for the time. I'm like I said, I'm bullish and Boffo on the 3rd Street project. I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around that innovation center, but I think that's just a little bit more nebulous, and I've spent more time in the downtown. So, thanks and appreciate it.
Mr. Mayor, can I go ahead and
Go ahead, Sal. I was on mute. Sorry.
Thank you. First of all, again, I'd like to just echo everybody else's expressions of gratitude to the folks who are participating in this and all of the work. I think the projects that you've come up with are very thoughtful ones. I don't want to make light of Councilor Drabkin's comments about the street canopy, because I do think street canopies are very important, in particular to 3rd Street. However, the ginkgo biloba trees, which smell so terrible when they start fruiting, if you want me to bring out a chainsaw and take those down, I would do that myself practically, the ones off of 3rd. My question, actually, Zach raised the point about the Innovation Center. Does the planning for that primarily benefits just a handful of landowners? I think if that's true, and I'm hoping that someone will correct me and just let me know, who would benefit from the project. And I think the thing that I'm having the hardest time with is investing significant public dollars, actually more than we're talking about investing into the 3rd Street streetscapes, which I think is a higher priority project for me. And I haven't heard that anybody else who is interested in that project has put any skin in the game at all. So it sounds like for a project that primarily benefits, economically at least, maybe a few landowners, the city's being asked to, put this planning package together, and there's not really any certainty that the project would actually happen. So, is there a possibility of maybe the McMinnville portion of that being just a portion rather than the full 250?
Okay. Councilor Peralta, I don't know that I can answer all of that question, but I can say that much like 30 or 40 years ago when the industrial district was developed in McMinnville, it was a bunch of people that own land out there working with the city to put the infrastructure in, and now that's a vital part of McMinnville. It does help the landowners, but at some point that becomes a industrial hub or innovation hub that helps the entire community. And so it is a little bit nebulous and a little bit harder to get your head around than 3rd Street, but the investment from the landowners is not going to happen if they have to do all the research on the planning associated with infrastructure that is ultimately owned by the city.
Yeah, I do understand that, Carson, and I wasn't suggesting that the landowners take on the entire obligation, but as you pointed out, the industrial zone that we have was a product of collaboration between the landowners and the city. And I'd also say the county probably has skin in this game too. So I just think that, if we're talking about $250,000, it's a substantial investment of monies for a pretty nebulous project. And I would like to see other participants put some skin in the game before we go whole hog on $250,000 in public funds for it.
If I may, Sal, I see that Heather Blank from MEDP is on the line. I don't know if Heather would have some insights from economic development and her group. And so Heather, I don't want to put you definitely on the spot but I know you've been very much involved in some of these thoughts.
Hi there. Well, as you know, I am the interim director, so I'm kind of new to the game as well in this concept. Heather Richards is definitely our more resident expert on all the planning out there. But the intent is that this money would go towards the infrastructure to connect to those lands. So whether it's off of Highway 18, it's also part of our airport master plan is going to be on the docket here. So that whole stretch of highway, it's kind of looking at what's needed in terms of broadband, wastewater, sewer, all, everything that we need out there. So it would be not necessarily, the landowners eventually, when we would develop an innovation center or some sort of complex, would then have to connect to that. But it's getting the infrastructure in place. And so coming up with this plan, so it could be in terms shovel ready for the developers and the landowners is what we're intending to do with that.
Thank you for that insight, Heather. Hopefully, Sal, that gives a little more structure to what those dollars might be used for.
I do understand that, Mayor, just to respond, but, for example, if a developer wants to come in and build a subdivision, housing subdivision, for example, the city's not eating those costs on what it's going to cost to put streets and infrastructure, and that's part of what they bring to us, I believe. And so while I understand the speculative nature of this project might inhibit, the landowners from wanting to invest, the entirety of the 250, I would think that there would be some interest, much as there are for other similar projects, to have more of a collaborative relationship where we put in some portion of the funds, perhaps the county puts in some portion of the funds, and perhaps the property owners put in some portion of the funds. Thank you.
Point well made. Thank you, Sal. Let's go to Kelly and then Chris.
Most of my questions have been answered. I do want to I greatly appreciate the presentation tonight. I think it was very interesting. And I'm supportive of this, particularly the 3rd Street part, but the Innovation Centers is definitely very interesting, particularly since it's focusing mostly on infrastructure. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. Let's go to Chris.
So it may have already been clarified, but in Sal's questions, he had asked about, he made the comment that there's going to be more money going to the Innovation Center than is going to the downtown improvement plan. And that's actually the reverse. What's the ask, as I understand it from the gentleman that were presented to us today, is for $500,000 for 3rd Street improvement and $250,000 for the Innovation Center. So it's half of the 3rd Street improvement.
Oh, I misheard. I thought it was 200 for the 3rd Street.
No.
Streetscapes. Okay.
So just not that I don't know if that's going to make a difference in your decision-making process, but I did just want to.
Makes it harder for me to do the second one.
Yeah, and I totally understand. And no, literally, this is just about. I'm really bullish on the Innovation Center. I see this as a grand opportunity to leverage dollars that we should be taking advantage of. I think both of them are leveraging opportunities that allow us to take a little bit of money that's been given to us and leverage it toward a much larger return. And I think that's something that we would be wise to take advantage of. I want to thank those on the committee that I vice chair for all your hard work, and the presentation you guys did today was excellent. Thank you. I suppose there'll be further deliberations over where this money actually gets spent in the future. I do agree with you, Councilor Peralta, if we could find a way to bring others into this process in the Innovation Center, it does seem like it would be beneficial to more than just the city of McMinnville. But in absence of anybody helping us, I do think we would be remiss not to take advantage of it. So thank you, Mr. Mayor, for the time.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other questions for the group? Seeing none, thank you. Thank you, Carson and Robert and Dave and Devin and others that might be a part of this. Thank you for the presentation.
Yeah, thank you. In closing, I just wanted to thank Heather. She's just been a joy to work with, and Jeff Knapp, who is out this week but was instrumental in putting this together. And we're really excited about having these funds granted and continuing to be part of the process to help with our mission. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That will take us now to advice and informational items, the reports from councilors and on our committee and board assignments. So I'll go ahead and just work across. Chris, I have you at the top of my screen, so we'll go ahead and ask you to report.
These gentlemen just gave my report. So I don't have a lot to add other than I will continue to push that I am really bullish on the Innovation Center. I really think this is a tremendous opportunity for us, and we'll continue to press for that going forward.
Thank you, Chris. Let's go over to Sal next.
Thank you, Mayor. The Rental Inspection Committee did not meet today due to technical issues for staff, so no report on that. We did reschedule the meeting for 2 weeks out. And the Council of Governments, I think I mentioned in the last meeting that we're starting our group of presentations that we're going to do on different issues related to economic development and local government. Our meeting to determine the format and so on is tomorrow, but hopefully within the next few days, I'll be able to provide staff with a specific schedule so that people can attend these meetings. And Mayor, you'll appreciate, I think the first one that we're likely going to do is disaster recovery and disaster response. So, but anyway, we'll have four topics ahead of the legislative session, and those topics will all be connected to legislation that is of interest to the Willamette Valley, including homelessness, housing affordability, emergency response capacity, particularly related to the wildfires, and water. So, thank you.
Thank you, Sal. Let's go to Zach.
No update, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Let's go to Kelly.
Very small update, no YCAP meeting this month. Basically, Visit McMinnville is just happy as all get at and going bullishly. They actually, I think, exceeded their overall revenue as anticipated this last month. A lot of good things happening. There's going to be a mural on a building down, I think it's on the, I'm trying to think of the name of the village building that's close to the railroad tracks. There'll be a new
Village Quarter.
Village Quarter. And there'll be a new mural that has to do with grapes and butterflies and a picnic cloth. It'll be very nice. It's specially designed for the shape of the building. So very exciting stuff. They're just going bullishly, and good for McMinnville. What can I say?
Thank you, Kelly. Let's go to Council President Drabkin. Remy? Yeah. Remy, can you hear us? I see that you're on. There you go.
I can. I'm sorry. It's a little rough. Our McMinnville Affordable Housing meeting is tomorrow, and I'm just gonna let Kylie talk about DEI because I cut out every time I tried to talk, and I apologize to everyone for the bad connection today.
Okay, we'll probably Kylie isn't on, but maybe we'll pick that up at our next meeting then. Okay, let me just, we had a Newburgh-Dundee Bypass Committee meeting last Thursday. What we did with the committee was share the same information that we shared with city councils and the commissioners across Yamhill County. And so I'm not going to belabor our conversations there. But we updated the committee so they know exactly where we're standing and what we're doing out in the communities with our local match ask. Next month, we will have a very detailed update on phase 2. And as we're getting finished with the design work there, Andrew will share with us and come prepared. So that will be a great meeting. The one other piece that I had is a part of your packet tonight was the city council group agreement that we had talked about at our last level 10 a month ago and narrowed it down to 7 items that we agreed upon. And so you have that as a part of your packet. I hope you've had an opportunity to read it or you remember our discussions. But where I'm at this point is I'm asking for a motion to adopt the 2021 City Council Group agreement. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Zach. It's been seconded by Sal. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed indicate by saying nay. The City Council 2001 City Council Group agreement passes unanimously 5-0. Let's move over to department head reports at this point. We'll go ahead and start with Jenny.
Thank you, Mayor. I have nothing to add.
Thank you, Jenny. Let's go to Jennifer.
Good evening, everyone. So I just wanted to let people know that yesterday, our first half of the ARPA funds did drop into our local government investment pool account. So our money is here. And I can see those pictures. Yeah. So given the discussion, I just wanted to remind people, the next time that we have scheduled to talk about the ARPA options and to begin making some decisions on initial investments, that is going to be at a meeting on October 12th. So there's still a little bit of time between now and then, and staff will be developing more details about the different options that people have expressed interest in. So thanks very much.
Jennifer, was that about 3.9 million that was dropped into our account?
Correct, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
You bet.
Let's go to Chief Lippert. Rich?
Mr. Mayor and Councilors, just an update from the emergency management front. County Emergency Management is working on a mass care and shelter planning that's being offered to all of the municipalities within the county to participate. We've taken them up on that offer. That we'll be working in conjunction with the county on developing that plan and including McMinnville's resources as a part of the countywide and also a part of a city plan to be a part of that dialogue. Secondarily, an update on our COVID situation at the fire department. We had 7 individuals within our organization test positive. 6 of them are back to work. One of them, who I had briefed on earlier, is in a much better place than he was. He is still in the hospital, but he is off the ventilator and is starting to recover and is moved into out of ICU into a regular hospital room at this time. So all of those are good things in his favor as he progresses out the backside.
Thank you for that report, Chief.
Thank you, sir.
Amanda?
Nothing to report, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think, Scott, are you at the Civic Hall?
Mayor Scott is not here.
Okay, I thought I saw him. And then let's go back to end with Jeff. Jeff?
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Just wanted to let you know that we have done a first round of reviews for the Public Works Director's position, and we're planning on-site interviews with 5 finalists in the middle of September. We haven't put the final calendar together for that, but we will be doing multiple panel interviews, and we will be providing an opportunity for staff and council to participate in a meet and greet with the candidates. So more to come as that calendar gets fleshed out. Nothing in addition to report. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. That now takes us to our consent agenda. We have 3 items on our consent agenda this evening. Is there any counselor that would like to remove anything off of that consent agenda, moving it to our regular agenda for discussion? Seeing none, I will ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
A second?
Second.
It has been moved by Zach and seconded by Sal. All those in favor of approval of the consent agenda as presented, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by indicating by saying nay? The consent agenda this evening passes 5-0. That concludes our agenda this evening. Thank you for your participation, and I will adjourn our meeting at, I think, a record for at least in the last 6 months of 8:03. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Mayor.
Hey, can we hold this open for just a second, Mayor, you and I, for